Today we are working on a 2002 Dodge Dakota, and we are going to replace the front driver's side caliper on the brake system as well as the front passenger caliper, and we will get right to it. Before lifting the vehicle off the ground, go ahead and loosen up these lug nuts. You don't want to take them all the way off, but loosen them up, because once you get it up on the jack, you don't want to be tugging forcefully at these lug nuts to try to get those loose. It could run into falling off the jack. You don't want that. So we'll get that off, and once you do that, put a jack stand underneath the vehicle. You don't want to be relying solely on that jack throughout the project. Safety first. Those jack stands are extremely helpful. Next thing, before I do anything, I just want to make sure that this is topped all the way off, because we are going to be leaking some fluid and I don't want it going completely dry, so I'm going to keep fluid in it throughout the project. Now that the tire's off, I went ahead and I put in position a drain pan. Again, we will be leaking brake fluid during the project. If you're doing it outside, try to be environmental friendly. You don't want brake fluid leaking onto the ground or grass. It will kill the grass. So just go ahead and get a drain pan. And next thing I want to do is kind of explain why we're replacing this. So this is your caliper right here, and what it does as you push on the brake pedal, the brake fluid moves through the system, and there's a piston inside this caliper that compresses and begins the friction lock on these brakes. As they wear out, for example this one, it tends to stick. After you let go of the brake pad or brake pedal, the piston is supposed to let go of the rotor. However, this one is beginning to stick, and because of that you can hear the brakes kind of metal on metal grinding for a little bit, and once you let go of the gas pedal you can feel the vehicle braking a little bit, but you're not pushing the brakes. So that's kind of why we're going to replace that. And this could also lead to a very hard or stiff brake pedal because your fluid is not operating or flowing efficiently due to the faulty, failing caliper here. Next thing, on the back side of the caliper there are what's called caliper slides, and these are a hex bit. So go ahead and get your hex set and go ahead and match the tool to that. I'm using this as leverage, and it kind of looks funny, but you can do this, but be careful you don't want to break your socket wrench there. But again, I'm using this as leverage just to pull this down. These caliper slides are very greasy, so once you get them loose you are gonna get your fingers a little greasy by pulling those caliper slides out. And basically what those do is allow the rear pad, the brake pad, to maneuver back and forth onto the rotor. And so we'll loosen those up and get those out. As you can see, I've got this one loose, and again it's greasy, so if you grab it by the hand you might slip off of it. So I kind of tilt this hex tool to the side and just slowly kind of wiggle it out. And there it is. That is your caliper slide. Again, there's one on top and there's one right down below. And again, they're in those little rubber boots right there, so you'll get both of those out. Caliper slides are out. Very next thing, back to the caliper. This is called your caliper anti-rattle clip. And as the vehicle is driving down the road, bouncing on the bumps and the brake system's being used, the piston inside the caliper is compressing as well as releasing pressure. The caliper needs something to stay firmly in position, and that's what this clip is. So to get that out, this is a little tricky, but what I recommend, without harming the rotor, just kind of come in with the flathead screwdriver and push like that, and it'll come out, and just slowly begin to release it. Okay. Anti-rattle clip is now removed, and when you go out and buy that fancy new caliper, it is going to come with brand new caliper slides, as you see here. It's going to come with a brand new anti-rattle clip, and it's also going to come with the copper ring gaskets that will be installed when we get to the actual line down below. But once you get those slides off and you get the anti-rattle clip off, you'll notice you have pretty good access to pull this off. It's pretty loose. From here, kind of a trick I'm using is I wanted something that I can put and I can hoist the caliper onto. When I pull this off the rotor, it's still connected to the hard rubber line back here. I don't want it dangling from that line, so I'm going to pull this off and I'm going to rest it on the box. That's going to give me time to remove the brake pads in the event that they're still good enough to keep and shift them over to the new caliper. And notice I'm doing all of these steps prior to undoing the line where fluid will come out. That's important. See how I hoist that up on the box there? Because again, this line is still connected and I do not want to bend it, I don't want to stretch it, I don't want to break it. Be very careful with this line. It's very important to keep in a healthy state. So as you can see, this caliper it's pretty old, it's pretty beat up. I would assume that these are the originals from 2002. These brake pads are pretty beat up as well, but there's still a lot of brake pads life left on these, so I might use them. What I would recommend if you're going to keep the vehicle long term, go to the local AutoZone, get yourself some $15 pads. But just for this video, I'm going to put these onto the new rotor, or I'm sorry, the caliper here. So these two little prongs here, you're going to pinch those, this will pop off, and this one comes off pretty darn easy. On the back side, there's just 3 little prongs there, you'll pop that off. Now that the pads are out, I've got them down here. I just went and got a steel brush and kind of cleaned them up a little bit. If your pads are in this condition, I highly recommend just replacing them. I'm just using the old ones for this video. Just know that once this video's done, I'm going to run to the local AutoZone. I'm going to buy the $15 nice pads and I'm going to put the new ones on. But for this video, I'm just going to, I don't have them on hand. So I'll also take that steel brush, and you notice these little teeth right here, those kind of grab onto this little clip, both upper and lower. So take the wire brush, clean all that rust and crap off there, and what we'll also do later on in the project, we'll put a little grease on here to allow these teeth to shift efficiently. I went out and I purchased some disc brake quiet. Some people get this product, some don't, and basically what it does, as you can see where the brake pad connects itself to the caliper, it's formulated to basically weaken those vibrations as well as the noise on the pads, and it withstands water as well as high temperatures as your brake pads heat up when they're in use. You can use it, you don't have to, but I'm going to. It also, on the tail end, when you go to replace these down the road, it helps take these pads off a little easier because it is metal on metal, and as these heat and cool and rust, these could basically rust together and be very difficult to get out of that caliper. So again, you can use them, you don't have to. And in the event that you do use it, once you get it on, wait about 10 minutes, let it kind of harden, let it gum up prior to putting it into the caliper. While you're letting that kind of dry and gum up, when you buy this caliper set, go ahead and get your brake lubricant for your caliper slides, as you can see, and watch this. These are not bolted in yet. You just push them out and pull them out. These need to be very lubricated. As you can see, they're not compared to the old ones. So we are going to use the new ones. We're going to open this and we are going to lubricate the heck out of that, as well as kind of push some down in this hole. So I basically ran a line of lubrication grease down it, and now I'm going to basically, if I can, basically just kind of get the entire thing lubricated. Now once you get the caliper slide lubricated, make sure before you put it in that the hex portion of the slide, remember earlier, it is the outer portion of the boot, so you want to install it properly. And as you push the caliper slide into the rubber boot, kind of maneuver it, twist it, turn it, pull it inside and out, back and forth. And what you're doing now is you're basically lubricating the entire inner portion of that boot. which is important because, again, these caliper slides shift as the brake pedal is pushed and the brake pads are operating. And you want to make sure, again, they're very lubricated. And you'll do that for the opposite side there. And after that, by this time, this is all a little bit hardened, and you're going to install. Again, this 3-prong one will go on the back side, okay? And as you can see here, this piston is compressed. That's the benefit of buying brand new ones. Okay, this one's pretty easy. You just put that one into place. And this one, I do want to point out, I want to kind of zoom in here. On the back side, as you can see right down in there, there is a tab sticking out. That will go into a hole on the caliper, and that will properly allow you to align that pad. These are ready to go back on. This caliper is ready to go back on. However, the very next step, now we have reached the point where we are going to disconnect this hard line. It's a 15 millimeter, and that is when it's going to begin to leak. So get your pan ready for the brake fluid to come out. Once you disconnect that, again, you have 2 copper ring gaskets that I'll show you. New caliper will come with a little rubber plastic cover that goes over the part that the hard line screws into. Notice that little indent right there? That is where you will put one of these, will go in that little indent. The other one will go on the opposite side of, or will go into the little block there. So now I'm going to loosen that up, again 15 millimeter. I'm going to do this pretty quick, so I won't be able to videotape through this, but 15 millimeter. I'm going to loosen this up. It's going to leak. I'm going to pretty quickly remove this caliper, set that aside, grab the new one, put it in place, and begin tightening that down. The new caliper is now on. The 15 millimeter bolt is tightened down. It is a torque of 22 pounds, so if you want to do that, if not, just tighten it down nice little snug, and make sure that those copper rings are properly positioned prior to tightening it down. Next thing, I'm going to push that caliper back up on the rotor and make sure this is all the way back. Next, you want to reinstall the anti-rattle clip, and this is a little tricky, so you might have to grab it with some pliers down here to get it back on position and then into these little holes, as you can see. It will take a little bit of muscle and kind of finagling it into this hole with maybe some pliers, but be careful, you don't want to ruin the clip while you're putting it back on. And your bleeder screw here comes without a cap, so go ahead and pull that old cap off of the old caliper, and we will put that back on here. As I mentioned earlier, I did put a little bit of grease on these pad lips or clips here where it connects to this part, and reason for that is because this shifts along this part of the pad and mount here. So you can do it, you don't have to, but I do it just for efficiency of the shift. So at this point, basically you're done. You'll put everything back together, you'll put the tire back on, you'll lower the truck, you'll do it to the opposite side, and at that point you need to bleed the brakes. Keep an eye on your level of your brake fluid, make sure that's topped off prior to bleeding the brakes. And that's it. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. I hope this video helps. Please ask any questions along the way if you do this project and you run into any questions or issues. There's a blue support tab at the home page. Support the channel if you want to. We'll keep these cool videos coming. Thanks a lot.